But today I want to talk to you about the importance, the vital importance of perseverance. Everybody say perseverance. Especially in this time that we're living in. I know for me, a lot of times I face discouragement. I face challenges. And we have to be people that know what it means to persevere, especially when we want to give up. Especially when we want to throw in the towel to persevere. In 1985, there was a young man by the name of Howard Schultz. Howard had an idea. He had an idea. Howard actually wanted to start a new type of coffee shop in America that would bring espresso to the masses. It wasn't just going to be drip coffee anymore. In his research, he went to over 500 espresso cafes in Milan, in Italy. And he realized that to see his vision come to pass, he needed $400,000. $400,000. And so he went to 242 investors and he presented his idea 242 times, his plan, his vision, how people will love espresso and how he'll bring something new to America, which would be the cafe experience. And he shared that 242 times. And do you know that he was rejected 217 times? 217 times people said, no, there's better things for me to put my money in. There's other things I'd like to invest in. 217 times people said, well, Howard, that's a great idea. You're a nice guy, but it's just not for me. But do you know Howard didn't give up? Where many of us might have thought, maybe after 30 times, maybe I have the wrong idea. After 100 times, maybe I need to do something else. Maybe after 200 times, God, am I out of your will? But he persevered until he raised that $400, and Starbucks, as we know it today, was birthed. You know what I realized with the most successful people? There are at least two things that every successful person has. Do you know what it is? All right, nobody wants to take a guess. That's okay. I just gave you a chance. They take risks and they persevere. They take risks and persevere. I tell my kids this all the time. Hard work isn't what's rewarded in America. Hard work. Now, hard work's important, but you can work hard in any profession. Do you know what's rewarded? It's risk. It's when people step out and they take a risk and they mortgage their house, they start a business. They take all the money they have and they start a business. And we are living in this world today where people are saying, well, no, everybody deserves a piece of the pie because everyone's working for it. No. Just because you go to work for a company doesn't mean you put everything you had up to start the company, right? Risk and perseverance. And even in our life, you look at our life today, wherever you are in your life, perseverance is important because we're constantly going to be discouraged. We're constantly going to be told by people you can't do it. You're dreaming too big. There are going to be people in your life who are going to feel intimidated by your vision. And rather than raising their life to where you are, you know what your friends will often try to do? They'll try to pull you down back to where they are. Because they'll feel better when you're back there instead of dreaming and stepping out and persevering. And so many people that are successful today, it wasn't because they were the richest or they were the smartest. It's just because they learned how to persevere through rejection and through disappointment in life. Countless stories that you can read about. People like Thomas Edison, Walt Disney, who at one point was so poor that he was eating dog food, and Steve Jobs, who through the ups and downs some of them brought on by himself, but through the ups and downs, persevered and became successful. And their work today are still influencing our lives. They persevered where others gave up. James 1:2 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy." That's not how we think. When troubles come, we often go, "Oh, here we go again. Why me? God, what did I do to deserve this?" James said, I need you to consider this an opportunity for great joy, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow, so let it grow. Let it grow. Look at your neighbor and say, "Let it grow. Let it grow. Let it grow." That's how Scooby-Doo would sing it. All right. "For when your endurance is fully developed, you'll be perfect and complete, needing nothing." How many of you want to be perfect and complete? Think about that. In Scripture, James is telling us how to be perfect and complete in our life. It's to develop endurance. And how do we develop endurance? We develop endurance by going through problems. And we're often trying to avoid problems, and really problems, when you look in the Bible, is the path to becoming perfect and complete in our life when we persevere through those things. The fruit of tested faith is endurance. On the tree of faith, endurance is a fruit that's hanging there. The only way that you're ever going to get stronger is to go through your problems. If you ever walk into the gym and you look around, find the biggest guy or the biggest girl in the gym. How many walk in and you see some people so big that, you're just insecure in who you are? I recently told that to one of our friends, husband and a wife. I looked at his wife, I said, "Oh my gosh, I just want to punch your bicep right now. It's bigger than mine. I'm feeling insecure standing around you." And you look at people like that, the biggest and baddest guy and girl in the gym, the reason they're that way is because they endured more than anyone else. They pushed more weight than anyone else. When most other people quit because they didn't want to lift any heavier, they kept on going. When they were grunting and they were sweating, and when everyone else was maybe out eating in the restaurants, hanging out, having a good time, sitting down and watching Netflix, they were in the gym and they were working out. And it was the perseverance and it was the endurance in their life that brings about the muscles that you see. A lot of times we want the muscles, but we don't want the work. Come on, can I get an amen on that? It doesn't work that way, and it's the same thing in our life. You want to be perfect, you want to be complete, you want to grow in your faith, then you got to go through the problems. You got to persevere through the problems. James 1:12, he went on to say that God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Testing and blessing go hand in hand. Testing and blessing go hand in hand. After you patiently endure the testing, you receive the crown of life. There's blessing that comes. And so Jesus gave us a story, if you're following along today, in Luke chapter 18. And this story is what you would call a good lesson from a bad example. All right? A good lesson from a bad example. You can always learn from everyone. All right, so I think that's a good thing to understand. Even when you're in a place with people you don't like, you can always learn something. And in Luke 18:1, Jesus one day told his disciples a story to show that they should always pray and what? Say that louder. They should always pray and never give up. There was a judge in a certain city, he said, who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow of that city came to him repeatedly saying, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, "I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. And all the husbands said, no, don't say anything. All right. Because our wives could say the same thing back. He says, I'm going to see that she gets justice because she is wearing me out with her constant requests. Then the Lord said, learn a lesson from this unjust judge. Even he rendered a just decision in the end. So don't you think God will surely give justice to his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will grant justice to them quickly, but when the Son of Man returns, how many will he find on the earth who have faith? There are two people in this story, a judge and a widow. A judge and a widow. A judge would be representing someone with authority, someone with power, and someone with respect. The widow, in that society, in that time, all right, not today, but in that time, a widow in that culture would typically have no authority, no power, and no respect because she lost her husband. And again, in that culture, a woman's identity, who she was in society, was tied to her husband. So she would have none of those things. It was a widow that would represent us in the story, and the judge who would be not a representation of God, but really what you would say the antithesis of who God is. How many know what antithesis means? The complete opposite. All right? The opposite of who God was. The judge is to represent the antithesis of who God was. And that widow would have no means, this was an unjust judge, to bribe the judge. I mean, wicked judges are bribed. She couldn't bribe him. She couldn't get him to give her justice that she actually deserved because she was wrong, but she had no voice. And so in the parable, she began to drive the judge crazy with her persistence, with her knocking, probably following him wherever he was going, saying, give me justice, give me justice, give me justice. And in the beginning, he probably just shrugged it off and says, that woman's crazy, leave me alone. But she didn't quit. She said, give me justice, give me justice, give me justice. Wherever he was, wherever he turned, she was right around in the next aisle saying, judge, give me justice, give me justice, give me justice, until he finally said, I don't care about God, I don't care about this lady, I'm not afraid of her, but she's driving me crazy. I'm going to give her justice just so she leaves me alone. Just so she leaves me alone. Let me ask you the question, when's the last time, if I could put it this way, when's the last time you drove God crazy? When's the last time you began to pray crazy prayers, persistent prayers, where you kept on asking and asking and asking, because we often settle for thinking if it doesn't happen, then it must not be God's will. I'm going to go believe for something else. This woman wouldn't give up. She knew what was hers, and he granted her request because he was sick and tired of her asking. Over the years, I look around my house, especially when we just moved house a couple of months ago. We're packing up. You know, we threw a lot of stuff away, and I found a lot of stuff that belonged to my youngest son, who is one of the most persistent askers. You can't find a store that you can walk in that he doesn't want something. It amazes me. It amazes me. We're going to any hardware store. He finds something that he wants, and I normally say no, but my wife will give in, and I'm throwing stuff away. Stuff that I know, you just know as a parent that if you buy it, it's going to go to waste. You know, if you, why would you even want that? You're going to play with it for 3 minutes and get tired of it. but they keep asking and they keep asking and they keep asking. And finally, you just buy it to shut them up. We have all this stuff that no one ever used, but it was bought. Why? Because persistence works. It works. And there are things in life that are obtained by you and I being persistent. A chip there, a chip off there, step by step, just an inch here and another inch here. And you're moving persistent. When it comes to school. It's just getting this grade and that grade and that grade. And persistently you continue. You're building something in your marriage. You're building this and you're building that. Step by step by step by step. Persistence. Let me give you two things. Number one is this: delays are not always denials. Delays are not always denials. And it's really easy for us to look at something and say, well, I didn't get the answer yet. It's been 1 hour and God hasn't answered my prayer. It must not be. It must not be His will. It's been 10 days and I didn't get an answer. It's been a month and I didn't get an answer. It's been a year and I didn't get the answer. It must not be God's will. I want to say delays are not always denials. In the book of Daniel, Daniel prayed. Daniel prayed to God. He brought his petition to the Lord, but he didn't get the answer right away. But we see here in Daniel 10:12, the angel of the Lord comes to Daniel and says, don't be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you began to pray for your understanding and to humble yourself before God, your request has been heard in heaven. And I've come to answer your prayer. But for 21 days, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. In other words, a demonic power blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me, and I left him there with the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. For 21 days, Daniel had to wait for the answer, because there was spiritual warfare that was happening. You know, there's spiritual warfare happening all around us today. All around us. All over America, all over the world. There's spiritual warfare. A delay isn't a denial. You're praying, let me tell you, if it's in the will of God, I just want to say the answer's on the way. The answer's on the way. I'm glad Daniel didn't give up after 1 day. I'm glad he didn't give up after 7 days. I'm glad he didn't give up after 10 days or even after 15 days, after 19 days, after 20 days. Daniel kept on. He kept believing because the answer is on the way. It's easy to equate unanswered prayers as a lack of faith in our lives. And really, unanswered prayers display the strength and perseverance and the abundance of faith in our life. We'll look at someone and say, boy, they prayed and they got the answer. They must have great faith. No, that's just the favor of God. That's the favor of God. You want to know what great faith is? It's the person still believing for the answer after 20 years. That's great faith. When the answer didn't come, but they're still crying out. They're still believing. They're still praying. They're still persevering. They're still saying, God, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to throw in the towel. I'm going to believe until I get the answer. That is great faith. Things aren't always going to happen right away. Naaman, when he came to get prayer to be healed from leprosy, what was the instructions? Go dip in the river 7 times. Why didn't God do it on the first time? Why did God even make him go in the river? I don't know. Couldn't have he been healed right there? Yeah, why not? Could he have dipped one time in the river and be healed? Why not? But God said 7 times. And if you remember, he was upset. But they said, why don't you go give it a shot? And he went in, he dipped 7 times, and he was healed one. I'm glad. He could have quit after one. He could have quit after two. He could have quit. No, but he did what God said. He persevered to the end. You see, if God only did things the way that we understand, we'd be so limited in our life because there's so much more that he wants to do. It's really important that we realize that there are going to be things that simply take time. And I think good things take a lot of time. You know, my son recently had a birthday, and I said, Jaron, what do you want to eat? And Jaron wanted a brisket. And so I had a picture of it, actually, if you guys can put that picture on, and this piece of meat. So I went down and bought an 18-pound brisket. It was huge. We threw it in the smoker. I say we, which really meant me. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and went to a friend's house, threw it in at 4:30, and started smoking it. That piece of meat took 11 hours. 11 hours to smoke at like 225 degrees. But let me tell you, when it was done and we took that thing out for his birthday, I mean, it's almost like it just wants to fall apart. It was so juicy and moist, and we cut that brisket, and you just put it in your mouth, and it was just wow. I can't explain it, right? You just gotta try it. Now maybe you're thinking 11 hours. 11 hours to cook a piece of meat? That's ridiculous. Well, it's true. I could have took it when it was raw, and I could have chopped it up, and I could have threw it in the frying pan for a couple of minutes, cooked it up really quick. I could have put it in the microwave. I got some microwave chefs in here. Yeah, thank God for the microwave. Could have threw it in the microwave and nuked that thing. But let me tell you what would have happened. It would have been chewy. It would have not had the flavor. It would have been dry. It would have been bad. It would not have been enjoyable. You see, the brisket is a strong muscle in the cow. It's a muscle. And it gets a lot of use, so it's tough. And if you cook it fast, that muscle will seize up, and it'll get all hard in that pan. But when you cook it slow, it begins to actually melt the collagens. The fats begin to pour out, and you can see it all mixed up there. And man, it is so soft when you eat it. It is almost, I say almost, it's almost like heaven, at least to my kids. Some things are just going to take some time. Look at your neighbor and say, try wait. Try wait. Hang on. Try wait. Your children are going to take time. Your marriage, it's going to take time. Your business, it's going to take time. Your spiritual growth is going to take time. If you try to rush it, you're going to ruin it. You're going to ruin it. I've been there. I pushed my wife or my kids too hard to do something in one direction. And you know what they do? They seize up like that brisket. And it's tough. And it don't taste good. It's going to take time. Some miracles are just going to take time. You're going to have to go slow and slow with that steady persistence moving in the right direction. Romans 5:3 says, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they will help us develop endurance, and endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation. The endurance of Caleb, when you look in the Bible, Caleb was promised that mountain, and he had to wait 40 years. At 40 years old, Caleb, that's yours. That's yours, Caleb. You were one of the ones who saw the potential, who had a good report. That's for you. But the enemy was still there. And he had to wait 40 years. And there was Caleb at 80 years old, just as strong as when he was 40. At 80 years old, he said, give me that mountain. That's my mountain. I've been believing for that. I've been waiting for that. Just because I got old doesn't mean that I gave up on it. Just because it took a long time doesn't mean that I'm throwing in the towel. No, my faith is just as strong as it was then. It is now. Give me the mountain. And I want to encourage you, family, don't give up. Don't relent. Don't give up on your marriage. Don't give up on your children. Don't give up on the promises that God has for us. The worship team can come up. I wonder today how many people haven't fulfilled their dreams, and they haven't fulfilled the dreams and the calling in their life, not because of qualifications, not because of an education or how much money's in their bank, but simply because they gave up. Simply because they quit. How many relationships have fallen to the side because people gave up? How many families have fallen apart because people gave up? How many churches have fallen apart because people gave up? I realized this a long time ago. I actually heard, we're at a pastor's thing, and Joel Osteen was sharing, and someone had asked that. How do you deal with the criticism? How do you know that guy gets nailed every week? Whether or not you listen to his preaching or it's your style of teaching, he gets nailed every week. And I love what he said. He goes, he talks, right? I just realized you need to just outlast your critics. I thought, wow, what a profound thing he said, because there's always going to be haters. How many know haters are going to hate? You just got to outlast your critics. You got to outlast your opposition and come out stronger because of it. Galatians 6:9 says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. At the right time, God has a time for you to reap the blessing that He has. Amen. Close your eyes with me today.